Welcome back to the channel. We should have some sort of a name or something for it. Fish show, tropical fish show, some kind of show. Anyway, it's all about the fish today again. And in this particular case here, we're working the water, you might say. So I thought we'd talk about the water. Anyway, there's lots of different variations on the water, you might say, and depending on what you're doing with your aquariums. In my case, I am breeding guppies and raising guppies, and that causes a lot of waste, and as such, then it causes me to have to do a lot of water changes. I prefer to age water, whether I'm getting water out of my rain barrel outside for soft water, or if I'm using hard water from the house because I can't get the other water. I like to age it. So I put it in these barrels. I've got about 160 gallons worth of storage space here. And I age it for a couple of weeks. I use a water conditioner on it that deionizes the heavy metals and takes the chlorine out, although the chlorine would evaporate on its own anyway in that time. But so once it's aged and kind of gets up to the right temperature and everything, then it's not so hard on the fish when you do the water changes, which for what I'm doing out there, it's at least once a week, maybe twice. This particular water is hard city water. Where I live, the waters are very hard. So the aquarium fish, they can tolerate that if you put the water conditioners in there that are readily available at the aquarium stores. That makes it better. And then aged water helps out too. Fish don't like a lot of change necessarily in their water, although freshwater fish are accustomed to more change than saltwater fish. They tolerate a little bit more. But the temperature of the water that you're returning to an aquarium when you're doing a change ought to be somewhere in the ballpark of where it's at there in the aquarium, ideally. So not too hot, not too cold, but about the same. I like to run my tanks at about 78 degrees for their water. It says 80 on my thing, but I'll show you that one time here. But the normally it's about 78 in there, I suppose, somewhere in there, 78 to 80. So these, I use 1 gallon jugs like this because it makes it easier for me to figure out how much water I'm changing. I want to make sure I don't change too much. So it's just a way of keeping track of things a little bit better. And it's easier to move it around. I'm in a basement down here where I don't have a big hose to use from anything, so I just got to kind of haul it around. But we get a little exercise out of that. All right, I'll be right back. Gotta bring it over here where the fish are. We get a project over here today too to take a look at, a new little toy to play with. I don't know how it works even myself. I saw it, but I gotta I have to look at the instructions. Sometimes, you know, you gotta just refer to looking at the instructions. It's just, did I say instructions? Yeah, of course. But I think in this case we're gonna have to let's make sure I know what they're doing. Okay. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here. Get these out of the way, I bring up another group of them, and then that'll fill up what I have for gallon storage that will last me a week or so. All right. So we got a little milk curtain train there. Yeah, there we go. So these jugs here are jugs from distilled water that I bought. So up until about a year ago, I wasn't using as much water as I am today, so I was able to actually pretty much hang on to enough rainwater throughout the course of the year to just use rainwater in my aquariums. Rainwater is like distilled water. There's no minerals or anything in the rainwater, so it comes down like distilled. So it's good for the fish. That's what they swim in out in the lakes and streams, surface water, mostly. Some lakes and stuff are spring fed, so there's going to be a little bit more mineral in there probably, but mostly that's surface water in lakes and streams, and that's rainwater, and that's pretty softer water. You know, not quite as much stuff in it. And that's kind of what the fish would prefer, but they'll get acclimated to the harder water too. You know, they tolerate that pretty good. So, but as long as you do the conditioning of it. So anyway, but I have a big barrel that I have out this window here that captures rainwater. So when we do get some rains here this summer, I'll probably be bringing in a bunch of rainwater to use for a while. Give them a little treat. A little softer water than this hard stuff. Some of the fish, if you're spawning certain types of fish, they really require that you have, you know, more like a rainwater, distilled water, RO water, all the same. I have a friend of mine who was telling about the RO system he had put into his house, and that's the water he has, that's his sink to drink. And I said, well, you're drinking distilled water. Whoa. I said, wait a minute. I said, would you ever go into the grocery store and buy water in a jug to drink and buy distilled water? Oh, no. Well, that's what you're drinking at home. Not that there's a big problem with it. It just doesn't have any minerals and elements in it. Your body needs some of that stuff. And they actually leach out of your body into there, you know, to compensate. That's what they say about the aquarium. When you use, you know, RO or rainwater in an aquarium, if you have any kind of critters in there that have a shell on them, snails or shrimp, they're going to suffer because that'll do a reverse thing on them to pull that stuff out of their shells. And I've seen snails actually get big open areas on their shells from living in hard water. It just eats away at them. So it's really, aquarium plants don't do as well either in hard water. The pH in hard water is about 8.5, you know, so it's pretty high. And a lot of the plants really don't tolerate that high pH like that. Rainwater comes down at about 6.5, so it's slightly acidic. And probably most of the rivers and streams are probably around neutral or maybe slightly acidic. That's kind of what fish prefer. Like I say, they'll tolerate a lot of this other stuff, but they just won't have their best condition. May not breed the best, might not reproduce the best, might not look the best, you know, grow the best, all of that, because of living in subpar water, you might say. And sometimes you got a little choice, like now. That's my word on water. Some of the municipalities in the areas around the country have water that they pull from a river, like here in Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Minneapolis and St. Paul, I believe St. Paul does too, but they draw the water from the Mississippi River. So the houses tend to have pretty soft water just because it's coming out of the river. But where I live, it's coming out of deep wells, and it's a very rocky, stony, sandy area, and it makes that water really hard when it comes out. So I prefer to use the rainwater if I can get it. People talk about using soft water. They use soften, you know, with a water softener, and you could. And I used to recommend that too back in the day. But I think it does. It still has some sodium in it and stuff. You know, it just doesn't seem quite as natural. And so I tend not to recommend that so much anymore. But so anyway, but this is the water gig here. You know, we got to fill up the jugs once a week or so and carry them over, and then do some water changes, which we're going to be doing here today too. We got some of that to do. So that's the story on aquarium water. Probably one of the more important things about keeping aquariums is that water. People think it's just a block of water in there, no fuss, you know. No. That's a living environment in there, and it's you have to take care of it. And part of that is, of course, all about the water and what you're doing with it, where it comes from, how much organic mess are you putting in there. We'll be talking about that stuff as time goes by. But that's going to give me quite a bit of water to work with here today. As long as I got that open, I'll probably do these other ones. And then I'll get back to you.